Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for inviting me, Misha. I love to do themed presentations, and of course, like everyone else, I consult with the agents in my life, and we thought, yeah, this could be a fun little twist on things using the Ghostbusters franchise. So there is something strange in the management neighborhood. There's also another reference, but it's slightly more obscure. James Belushi movie called Taking Care of Business. I thought anyone get that reference? That's very niche. Um, my name is Ulrik. I'm from Denmark, so I share a name with Lars Ulrik, drummer from Metallica. I don't really play drums. I run a two-man training company with my buddy Kenneth, who says hi, can't be here today. We do a lot of training for Apple and different device management services. There we go, David, DMS. Mostly Jamf. We do deliver the Jamf trainings. If anyone is doing 400 next week, come say hi. There's a high chance you will see me on the other side of the screen. Oh, great. Outside of training and working with Apple, I am a huge foodie. I love to cook. I'm very much into everything Japan right now, so that, of course, includes the food. I love playing guitar, piano, and singing. And I'm like a late bloomed retro gamer as well. So ordered the funny playing Game Boy where you put everything together and it plays old Game Boy games. So Apple has sort of this marketing slide about what Apple business will take care of in your company. And I thought, I'm not going to be able to cover all of that, and it's probably not going to be interesting. A lot of this is not going to be interesting to us. So I'm not really going to cover anything about grow. We probably all let other people grow the business. We're more dealing with running everything in the background. And unfortunately, in Europe, we don't yet have email contacts and calendar. I haven't been able to confirm it, but I believe like my deduction abilities, probably because we don't have the ability to purchase additional iCloud storage, and making do with 5 gigabytes of email is just like, it's going to be a struggle. So yeah, in essence, I'm going to focus on managed accounts and setting up and manage devices for Apple Business here. And if I break that down, my agenda is going to look a little bit like this. And I'm going to assume, should never make assumptions, but I am going to assume that most people are familiar with using Apple Business Manager. So I will focus on the changes and updates mostly. So I'm going to talk about what's been changed with signing up. What are some changes around managed Apple accounts? So those were previously there, but things have changed a little bit. And then we're going to look at the new features. So different enrollment methods, what's supported, what are the configurations that are currently available, and what's sort of running in the background. How do we deploy apps and packages? And I do also want to talk a little bit about security. We love security. So after every little section, I've tried to create like an FAQ, because I think I might have seen that on Apple's documentation somewhere, but mostly, the kind of Apple admin questions that I would have if I was meeting Apple Business for the first time. So a little FAQ. I've also created a Slido. For those not familiar, you can all interact with the Slido. So if you go to this QR code, there's a Q&A session. Please put in any questions or thoughts that you have had about Apple Business, and I will try and then add them to the slide deck if I have the answer or if I can find the answer before I publish the PDF of all the slides, if those are going up somehow. Otherwise, I'll put it on a website or something. So you can join that. Either go to slido.com and there's a number, but yeah, it's not rigrolling, I promise. And then we'll see in the end if I have time to answer some of those questions. So I do like to frame everything in a little story. I believe storytelling is a great way to make things more relatable instead of just talking cold hard facts. So we have this little company. It's a brand new startup. It consists of 4 people right now: Janine, Peter, Ray, and Egon. And they're starting an extermination business. Sure, interdimensional vermin is what they're going for. So if we were scared of copyright infringement, we could call them the Compost Busters or something like that. Uh, I don't know. I've never gotten in trouble so far for using other existing brands, but it's all done in a comedic reference, satire, I think. So they're opening up their headquarters in an old firehouse. And Janine is the brains of the organization. She's going to be kind of running everything, do accidental IT. So she's sort of looked into Apple Business and what she can do with it, and she's gonna find that it should work. So everyone's getting a new iPhone for sure, and that needs to be company owned. She doesn't dare to let some of the guys enroll their personal iPhones. You never know what's going to be on there. So she said, no, everyone's getting a clean phone for this. They're also going to need at least one iPad, maybe two, one for reception, maybe one for their car. That thing does not come with a built-in GPS for sure. And they want people to be able to check into the reception. So that's going to be a non-user associated device, but of course still set up with automated device enrollment. And then she's still struggling. She doesn't know when she's going to get her first paycheck. So she's bringing her own Mac, but she's also selling it to the company. So she wants the Mac to be enrolled as a company device. That's important, but she's heard that that's possible. And she doesn't want to go through the hassle of having to erase the Mac and set it up again. Okay, so she signs up. And this process is very similar to how it was with Apple Business Manager. You go in and you sign up. If you are using an Apple account or an email that's already associated with an Apple account, you cannot use that as the primary sort of administrator account. So you are asked whether you want to create a new managed Apple account or whether you want to use that existing, but it's now one of the new things is it's going to be with fairly limited features. So we can now invite other Apple accounts, even personal Apple accounts, into our Apple business, but that is mostly going to be for brand managing, so marketing responsibilities. Otherwise, she could use a .apple account as her domain, but if she signs in with an email address that is not yet registered as an Apple account, she gets an offer. Oh, you want to make this a managed Apple account? And then at the same time, that domain is grabbed, and if their Apple business is going to assume this is going to be your primary domain for your organization. So once you are onto the dashboard, I guess you might call it, it looks fairly different. We're going to run through the interface. Now, I won't do a general overview, but we're going to see most areas here. Now, if it is a brand new account, just like before, we have to verify the organization. But that's changed a little bit. If we go into settings and we have the same 60 days to verify, but originally you had to verify your domain. That wasn't as such associated with verifying your organization, like proving who you are. We had to get a verification contact, call someone. This has become significantly easier in Apple Business. So you have to choose two different means of verification, but there are a lot of new options here. So you can still use your business ID, your international business ID, the Dun & Bradstreet number, DUNS number, but another of the two verifications can also be your domain validation, so a TXT record in your DNS records. But there are a bunch of other things, basically like anything with your company name on. So in Denmark, we can use our VAT registration, which we have a CVR, which is a Danish business number. You can even, if you are a place of food and beverage, use your food license, or in Denmark, your alcohol bevilling, your liquor license can also be used. Sure, who wouldn't want to approve their Apple business with a liquor license? No. Let's see how that goes. If you have lease or property management, even a utility bill, you can use that, and other official documents. But Janine sees this other category and she thinks, well, for one thing, we have a Class A ectoplasm containment unit operating license. Sure, yeah. So she uploads a couple of permits and she confirms the domain and she's up and running. So the first thing is we need to create some accounts for the people in this organization. We go into users, and of course, we're going to have the initial account created is going to be an administrator. But either way, I'll show you how we could add more users. And let's see, how is the size here? Maybe not readable, so I'll kind of go through it. Either she can create a brand new account, or, as I mentioned before, you can also invite an existing Apple account, even an unmanaged or like a regular Apple account, but they're only going to be able to do brand managing. So I guess that's very flexible. If you have someone who's handling your social media or something, they don't need a managed Apple account for this. And then, just like we were able to earlier, we can also federate with the built-in federation opportunities with Microsoft Entra, Google Workspace, or any third-party identity provider that supports OAuth and SCIM and all those things we need. So we create a new account. We need a name. We need to give it the managed account name. You can also later decide the formatting of the managed account names. That's very similar to what we were doing in Apple Business Manager. We decide which domain we want to use for that account in case we have more than one domain in our Apple Business. And we assign a role. So there are a couple of new roles in Apple Business as well that I'll go over in a second. Every role, well, not every role, but yeah, every role needs to be attached to an organizational unit. And that's new, but it's not really. It's just locations that have been renamed. So I'll just go over how that works as well. And then because you can now, so the idea is you can kind of use Apple Business as your identity provider to a certain extent. So I think because of that, we also have a couple of additional details in there now. So things like job title, your manager, employee start date, things that you might want to put into your identity provider. But let's go back to roles. So a couple of these we know, organization administrator, device, they're the same as they were before, but we have a new role, IT administrator. So from looking through the permissions of this, it looks very much like what we may be familiar with in Apple School Manager. It's someone who has almost the same privileges as an organization administrator, except for API. They, like out of the box, they only have read permissions for API. Now, one thing I could not still early days, confirm is that it says that they can be assigned to an organizational unit to limit the people and licenses they manage. Now, I wasn't able to do that, but it makes sense that is what you were supposed to do for an IT manager. So maybe that's a little glitch, could be fixed right now, but when I tested it a couple of days ago, it wasn't. That's a new role. Then the marketing administrator we've talked about as well. Who is someone who can manage assigned brands, locations, and then now there's a dedicated API role as well, our device manager API. There is also a brand manager role that will appear if you have any brand managers invited from outside. Then I said organizational units are new, and probably not, we shouldn't confuse them too much with OUs from Microsoft or Windows Active Directory, but basically locations have been renamed to organizational units. So they still work in many of the same ways. We have a top organization, and then we can create multiple locations below. So in this case, we have a default Ghostbusters Inc., and then Janine created a location called Firehouse. Now, if you are going to use third-party device management solutions, those locations is where we assign our purchased application licenses, books, and where we can assign users to. If we're going to use built-in device management, which we are, mainly it's going to be for grouping people, for organizing people, because we are not going to be downloading the volume purchase token like we would with a third-party tool. So yeah, I'm still not sure about the IT administrator, didn't have a chance to confirm it, but organization administrator and device enrollment manager for sure have to be at top level. That's very similar to before. And then IT administrator maybe at OU level. Either I'm doing it wrong or it's not working yet. So Janine creates roles for everybody. in the organization. And then a new thing is that we now have an opportunity to go into groups, and we can create user groups in the interface. So there are even two types of groups. There is a static group, so she can create a group called Firehouse. I know that it's always, maybe I should have chosen a different name, call it Firehouse employees, because now it's a group of users, but these are all the users from the organizational unit Firehouse. So you could add a new group, and you could do it as a static group, which means you give it a name, possibly a description, and now you can sort of add people manually to that group if you want. Now, we are ITT people, we like automation. There is a little bit of automation. There is also an option to do smart groups. So far, what I've seen is you can use only organizational unit or role. I think Jordi mentioned that he was able to use a domain as your smart group identifier. So you could take all employees of a certain role, all employees from a certain organizational unit, or from a domain, from what I've understood so far. So she's going to add all the users from the Firehouse group. And that was just like a quick run through of the managed Apple accounts. Everything else, kind of like access to services, sign in with Apple, that's still there, and that works in the same way. So a couple of things that I thought myself, and use that QR code if you want to add some questions, if you can't remember until the end, but in essence also so I can grab these and put them in extra slides, just in case you want, if I know the answer or if I can find it. Can I use this as an IDP for a small business? And I would say potentially, thinking it through, the place where I see it might be a deal breaker is you need to consider the services that you're going to be asking your users to sign into, and whether those are supported with sign in with Apple. Because if you're using something that needs, Okta verification or 365 verification as their backend, then you might need another sort of bigger IDP instead. And of course, it can be used in collaboration with those through the federation that works like before. Can I embed groups? That's something I thought, can we do like a group within a group? Currently not. So nothing that's available right now. Only one level of users is available for both those group types. And what about groups from my federated IDP? And no, not that either. As far as I've been able to establish, not through the API either. But again, everything is very new product, so things might be coming. Cool. So built-in device management, that's like one of the brand new things. Everything in this category is new. I thought I had a little new batch for that entire category. We still add devices the same way. We can exchange organization ID and customer numbers with Apple authorized resellers or directly from Apple, and any devices we purchase from those resellers or Apple will automatically appear in our Apple business. Or we can manually add devices using Apple Configurator on the Mac or Apple Configurator on an iPhone and iPad, and scan the devices and add them with a 30-day provisional period. So if you are transitioning from Apple Business Manager, or if you have already transitioned, even if you didn't know, as soon as you sign the terms and conditions, you still need to set up device management, and you're not going to be allowed to do that if it's a brand new instance until you have verified. So I was thinking, this is cool for like testing and demos. You can just sign up for a new instance every time. Not if you want to use the management. So you do have to verify your organization for that to be available. Then you also, and some of this will be different if it's a brand new setup compared to a transition, but even if you are coming from Apple Business Manager, you also have to turn on the built-in device management in settings before that work. No, actually not in settings, maybe it's in devices. It's one of those things, of course, I did it way in the beginning, and now I struggle to remember, where was that? I took a screenshot to make sure I documented everything, but no, I believe it's under devices. And then once you do that, you see blueprints. So something we may be familiar with from Apple Configurator, other MDM, almost said it, other device management services out there also are big fans of blueprints. They mentioned 3 different types, so that's very small. You probably can't read it either. Blueprints for users, user devices, uh, blueprints for service devices, so anything like that reception iPad without an end user, and then a custom blueprint, which we don't know right now, undisclosed. There is one thing you need to decide, though, before you start enrolling. And as far as I've been able to determine in the settings, well, basically you go into device management and you go for the settings for your built-in device management. This is also where you could add additional third-party device management services. You have to decide how are different device types going to behave in my management. So Janine thinks, well, if we use automated device enrollment, the device is always going to be organization owned. That's for sure. So when you auto enroll a phone, automated device enrollment, that's going to be organization owned. So she thinks if someone else were to be clever enough to go into the sign in with worker school account, it's going to be on their personal phone. And then that should be signed up as a personal phone. So that is possible. A little hard to read, but it says iPhones should enroll as a personal device. But that is only going to be true for anything other than automated device enrollment, because that only works for organization owned. So now you can kind of have both ways. I like that. It's keeping it simple while still having the opportunities. And then she has that Mac, and she wants to be able to enroll the Mac. She doesn't want to wipe it. So she can set in the system that when a Mac is enrolled, it should enroll as an organization-owned device. So then she gets the best of, I don't know, 3, 4 worlds. She also sets the same for the iPad, because the iPads that are going to be in reception, possibly in the car, they're going to be non-user specific. So I might skip this for time. Organization, device enroll, new or erased. We use the blueprint for user devices. If we all devices are supervises, as with all automated device enrollment. If you use account-driven device enrollment, so anything that's already set up, pretty good for Mac. We are still going to assign users, user blueprints. Just be aware that it's only the Mac that's supervised. So that's the same as for any other MDM. We still also have automated device enrollment for single function or non-user devices. You could share devices of some sorts. That would be the blueprint for service devices. And then, of course, all types are supervised there. All device types would be supervised. Again, it's using automated device enrollment. And then in case someone uses account-driven on the phone, which is the only one we've set it up, that's going to be account-driven user enrollment for a BYOD scenario. And that will automatically happen if you log into a phone that's not in your Apple Business Manager with your managed Apple ID. Then it just chooses in the background. There's no well-known there is no well-known file that we have to maintain. We decide everything in that in those drop-down menus you saw before. Okay, so first, let's do the organization-owned device enrollment. Time is flying by when you're having fun. We need to create a new blueprint, give it name. Some default settings are already going to be there, and then you need to add users or a user group because we are working with user group blueprints. You do need a Wi-Fi configuration in there. I didn't create any configurations before I did this, but you can create one there right on the spot in the blueprint. So that's basically all you need to get your automated device enrollment going. That means you can now set up the phone. Normally, of course, you would be adding apps and configurations, but I wanted just the basic setup before I started to add anything else. Oh, wait, Janine wants just the basic setup before. So connect to Wi-Fi, language region, all that. We see user and privacy before the device management. That's something that's a little different. We need to log in with the managed Apple account. So at the same time, that's logging in with the Apple account, and it also serves as the enrollment authentication for our enrollment. Two-factor authentication. I skipped Face ID for now and do a passcode. Very quickly after this initial enrollment, by the way, right now, all steps are shown. As I said, there's really no place we can go in and modify a enrollment profile or a pre-stage profile. But 2 days ago or 2 evenings ago, there was an IT camps session on Apple Business, and they specifically said, if you want features like that, use the feedback. So I tell people, instead of complaining about everything that's missing, well, do something about it and say, I would like these features in Apple Business. I think they're going to be much more happy to hear that than complaints. So a couple of discoveries around this enrollment. Slightly quicker way, if you've done account-driven enrollment before, you've seen this, you can go into the account setting and there's a link directly to profiles and device management. We have restrictions and configurations from the get-go, and I noticed that the generic passcode settings are quite strict. It's 12 characters, which might be a little much for the guys. Janine thinks she's going to need to change that. And I was also a little surprised. I was out of the box thinking, oh, they're going to use all declarative device management, but only in this case, the software update is declarative device management, but the Wi-Fi is in the regular configuration profile payload. Like, you can't really see what's going on in Apple Business, but you can sort of deduct that to a certain extent. Someone might tell me I'm wrong. That's what I deducted, at least. Once you have a device enrolled in Apple Business, you now see significantly more inventory information that we did before. There's an overview tab, a details tab. We can see the apps that are currently waiting to be installed, and we can see configurations that are applied to the device. So the second one she wanted to enroll was her Mac. And the clever thing is, we don't need to change anything because her user is already assigned to the same blueprint that's kind of serving as the pre-stage. So just going into her Mac, she's already logged in with a personal Apple account. She has a personal iCloud with files that she's worked on. But now she can go into Settings, General, Device Management, sign in with a work or school account, sign in with the same managed Apple account that she used for the iPhone. And it's going to grab everything from that blueprint. And the blueprint can include configurations for Mac and iPhone. Some configurations apply to both device types. Some you might want to create separate configurations for, depending on your wishes. There is an approval. I have to figure out whether that requires admin privileges. I would think not, because I guess a standard user should be able to use these features. So once she's in, she gets all the configurations are delivered. And if you take a look, now I've not seen any MDM. Please come and tell me if I'm wrong, able to do this before, but we have two iClouds on a Mac. There's both the personal iCloud and there is the managed iCloud in there. So that is pretty cool. Okay, I'm going to skip the iPad enrollment. I can tell that I'm going to be running out of time and go to my little FAQ. And I said that can I skip steps in the setup assistant? I've looked and looked. It does not look like there's any step skipping, enrollment customization, no auto advance. But again, instead of us complaining, let's submit feedback on this, that this is something we would like to see. Can I assign multiple blueprints? So yes. Blueprints can be assigned to users and devices, and multiple blueprints. Maybe you want to create a blueprint just for a collection of apps or something like that. So that means you do have to be careful. There you can get conflicting profiles. That is possible. Can I use managed and personal Apple accounts at the same time? Well, there's a little caveat there, only with account-driven device enrollment. If you use automated device enrollment, you authenticate with a managed Apple account. That's the only Apple account you're going to get on there. So that's something you have to consider. It says in the documentation, if you want to use both types, they recommend account-driven. But then the thing is, only Macs are going to be supervised. So that's something to take in there. What about federation? Yeah, same rules apply for all those managed account types. All right, so just briefly, this could be a whole presentation by itself. What are the configurations that are supported? Not a lot there yet, and I didn't want to go over them bit by bit, but just call out a few that caught my attention. AirDrop. So AirDrop restriction only available to Mac. So if you want to restrict AirDrop on phones, I would say, like, why would you? But then you have to go through other means. AirPlay restriction. First I thought, what? AirPlay restriction? But that's the incoming. So that's only for Mac and Apple TV, blocking incoming AirPlay requests. What was next? The app access, we know this. That's only for iOS, so we can allow certain apps or disallow certain apps as well. Pretty flexible. Content caching both offers the opportunity to do it as a restriction, but also as a configuration if you are pushing out a configuration to the computer you want to be a content caching service in your organization. Data management is a little misleading because it does apply to Mac OS, but then when you look through it, most of the settings in there will say iOS only. The only management for the Mac is whether the user can do erase all contents and settings. So still no open-in restrictions on the Mac. And lock screen, also one configuration for both device types, but the Mac one has a lot of the additional ones about what account types are allowed to log in and log out rules and all these things. And then I think I saw someone mention very early on that custom settings or custom configurations weren't available, but they are. They're there. They are available in the interface. So I compare this to Apple's GitHub repo, specifically the existing declarations or the configurations that are in the declarative device management framework. And currently there are quite a few things that are missing. So we don't like to predict what might be coming, but for sure, I'm thinking it should be easy to see some of those appear. Now my timer is different here. This says I have 5 minutes left, but by my account I should have 15. Yell if you want me to get off stage, Rob, or Misha. So yeah, if you see like a big long hook coming out, like those cartoon style. So a couple of the questions I had, is Apple Business only compatible with declarative device management? That was sort of my original thinking, but no, there are definitely. So that, I guess that's it. Thank you very much. Oh. No, that's good. So the irony here is, and I can bring this into like excellent content. I did a talk last week on declarative device management, and one of my demos in that talk was live on stage, setting the software update declaration. Do you want to know what date I randomly picked as the final enforcement? So this is what we call sort of circling around and sawing off the tree that you're sitting on. Perfect timing. Well, we'll see. That could take a couple of hours. No, it's good. I think it's almost there. I see an Apple logo at least. Fortunately, we can edit this out in the video. Well, I think. Let me see. What can I remember from the management, or any questions that anyone here has had about what are the capabilities of the management side of Apple Business? Yeah.
The custom configurations part is only available for a week now, because in the early days it was only available for the USA.
So that's what I heard. So thank you for that confirmation. Anyone else? I think there was someone down here.
Okay, this is for business, but do you know when it's coming available for school?
No, I haven't heard anything about that. They did talk about it in the session 2 days ago. Someone said, is the same thing coming to Apple School? Is it then just Apple School? And they did mention, some of the Apple people on the call, that they're not sure, like, what are the features that you would like, because you're typically already using a school information system as your identity provider, probably not want to use the one that Apple has. So they were saying, again, submit requests or feedback on features that you would like to see from Apple Business become available in Apple School Manager, which is still called Apple School Manager, I guess.
Okay.
Excellent.
I joined you talking on the Mac Admins podcast, and I enjoyed your talk today. Thank you very much. I get a question regarding the scalability of this solution, and Business Essentials wasn't so well in this regard. You got any experiences so far regarding more than 5 devices?
That's a very low bar. So far in my demos and exploration, I think I've only enrolled like that, 5 or 6. So it would be tough to compare, and I don't have any experience with Apple Business Essentials, as it wasn't available outside of the US. Does anyone else, is there an unofficial roof for Apple Business Essentials? I guess it also depends on whether you want to use the built-in identity like directory services or whether you're still federating that to something else. Because I definitely think right now probably one of the limitations that would hold you back is the maturity of the identity directory services built in. So if you're still federating that to something else, you could get far with the current. There's still some bugs from people I've talked to as well, but you could get pretty far with the built-in device management. And I think for like a certain size of audience, it's definitely viable, or may become even more in the future.
Thanks.
Yeah. One more question. Do you think, is it compatible at the current moment with any CM systems? Yeah, any CM solutions?
CM, so I have this thing about IT acronyms. Depending on your area of expertise, that could mean many different things. So customer management or?
Well, any kind of, integrations-wise, what do you know about Apple Business so far?
So one thing I didn't have time to dive into in these 2 weeks is the API, but the API has been significantly expanded from the Apple Business Manager API. So there could be some opportunities there.
I guess we'll test it out.
All right.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could expand on the custom settings capability. Is that like in Jamf, the sort of custom payload type thing for applications or whatever?
Yeah, for sure. Give me 2 seconds. So I was cut off before I had intended to stop my presentation, and now everything is opening up. So yeah, I still have, I don't know how much time I have, but give me 2 seconds. Because there were some things that I thought, I definitely want to try figuring out if this is possible. Maybe I'm allowed to. The cool thing would be if it offloaded everything as well. I'm doing this from the Mac Neo, by the way. If you want your speaker notes down there, don't use the Mac Neo, but otherwise it's served me fine. So if you want a software update that pushes through no matter what you're doing, I can recommend Iru. All right, let's see. Otherwise, I'm going to throw myself off stage if it doesn't come up soon. This is going to be one of those great stories, though. So you know why you want to make sure you listen to that little pop-up before it's too late? So I did have a section on apps and books, but let's see if I can come back up here. But like the main takeaway from apps and books, just to sum that up really quick. Not too bad, not too bad. You can't see it, but I'm like stress sweating, of course. But I think apps and books built in, they work as you would think. The only thing is you don't assign them to a location, you assign them to the built-in device management. That's like the big difference. Packages is possible. There we go. Package installation is possible. You have to host the package yourself. and you have to provide all the details necessary. Now there are the things that are needed is the name of the package. You need a SHA-256 hash value of it. There we go, there's the controller. You need the bundle ID and the version number. But someone last week at Macadoc, I'm really sorry for not remembering who, it was at one of the mixers, told me about this page called Intune Brew, which is really sort of a website that offers packages for Intune. Now, whoever set up Intune Brew realized that, oh, a lot of these packages can be used for Apple Business. So all of the applications on intunebrew.com that are Apple Business compatible, you basically just go there and you copy the information. So they're either linking you to the official hosting of that package, or they may have repackaged. It'll say in the description as well. All right, so just because there was a couple of things I was wondering around configuration profiles. The firewall configuration has already gotten a little attention on there. Really? Okay. Sure. Because the firewall configuration, you do need to create your own encryption certificate. And that could look like a bit of a task, but it's not that much trouble. I just copied a little script from the documentation. I was like, ooh, is line breaking gonna work? How's that gonna be? But first try, didn't do anything else. It just created the public and private key, and I could upload the PEM file, and I could set that encryption. It does give you some warnings, Apple Business, from like something that looks like to be maybe compliance. So when I had enrolled the Mac originally, I started to get this one item for review in inventory, and then it starts to complain over things like no firewall. If File Vault is not enabled, it complains over that. Currently it was. I needed to turn it off and turn it on again. Of course, it was already. So it kind of looks, activation lock will give you like a red flag as well. It kind of looks like it's something compliance, but there are no official settings for you to manage, like what do you want to be within compliance. So that's another thing that might expand, or we might have expansion wishes. So the last thing I wanted to say, and someone asked this, what about custom configurations? So currently rotate file vault keys, nope, currently not available in the user interface. Additional restrictions, so this is the one I was looking for, all this build up, and here we go. Yes, so the com.apple.application access domain works. Like with everything I had time to test, and even PSSO. So there are no built-in settings, but I did try to push out company portal from Intune Brew. The first one here is the com.apple.application access. I just allow local user creation false, allow time machine backup, just as a couple of examples of the many different keys you can set in that. And those perfectly locked. No user creation in the interface. And no allowing to turn on time machine. So that seems like you have a lot of, the guys just mentioned iMazing. I built all of these extra configurations using iMazing. That works. And then I used the PSSO configuration, installed company portal, and platform single sign-on works as well. So there are some capabilities, even though it may not currently be in the built-in user interface. Now last, just to finish it up, if you don't know this or you don't remember, probably in one of her finest roles, Sigourney Weaver plays the gatekeeper in Ghostbusters. And bad things happen when the gatekeeper and the keymaster get together. That's when Gozer shows up. So the final configuration that Janine is looking at before we finish things up is, of course, the gatekeeper configuration. She creates a new one. She says only allow applications from App Store and identified developers. Don't allow this to override. Add it to Blueprint. She realizes she made a huge mistake. It says here that gatekeeper settings don't affect Macs enrolled as personal devices. So if she'd only enrolled that Mac as a personal device, none of the challenges they face later in that movie would ever have happened. The gatekeeper wouldn't be able to be applied. So that's it. Thank you very much for bearing with technical difficulties.